there seems to have be some rather disturbing allegations about parties at Mar-a-Lago for so-called calendar girls, and some of which is too filthy to air on radio. And there's also the allegation by a woman that she was raped at 13 by Trump. But I should absolutely stress that this is uncorroborated. These are allegations. They're untested in court. They're unproven. And we do know that a lot of lurid claims were made. The FBI collected these claims over the years about what was going on with Epstein, and all the documents, or at least the vast majority of them, are now being published.
Joining me now is Sarah Baxter, who's director of the Mary Colvin Centre for International Reporting. Good afternoon, Sarah.
Hello, Cathy.
There is a lot of news coming out of these millions of documents. I know you've only just got online like everyone else, but what are you able to ascertain from the many allegations contained within?
Well, first of all, Trump is mentioned hundreds of times, I believe, in these documents. I should stress that I'm only just catching up with the information like everybody else. And some of the news that's coming out thick and fast has not been fully verified. I have seen some very salacious accusations regarding Trump's behavior with so-called calendar girls at Mar-a-Lago. I have no idea whether this is true or not, I should stress. But I'm
and he's
sure
always denied any wrongdoing,
interest.
hasn't he?
He certainly has. And so we need to make that clear. But there's a lot to rifle through. Somebody else you might be feeling rather embarrassed and on the back foot today is Bill Gates, because there are some pretty seedy allegations that are currently being aired on some news websites, actually, about his behavior with Russian girls. Mm-hmm. So I can't say more at the time or right now, unless you want to encourage me to go further.
I mean, the issue with all of this is clearly that, you know, the people concerned deny all the allegations that are coming out, that are being dripped out online. But there's just a flood of documents. But what is the sort of status of these allegations and the claims that are being made? Very lurid claims, as you've described.
Well, of course, we know that some very lurid claims have turned out to be accurate, and that's why Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in jail at the moment for having procured and sex trafficked young women to Jeffrey Epstein. So we're not saying nothing happened with Jeffrey Epstein. On the other hand, what the Department of Justice has done has collected millions of documents and finally released a further 3 million today, which include more or less everything that mentioned that they collected in the course of their investigations about Epstein. And that includes a lot of names of famous and wealthy people. Now, it doesn't mean that everything that they collected was true. These are all allegations that, you know, would have been brought to court against Jeffrey Epstein had he not killed himself, and, you know, had they been considered of sufficient merit to warrant being brought before court. So this is the difficulty. We're now seeing a lot of information. Todd Blanche, speaking for the White House, said that, or rather for the Justice Department, said that a lot of information had been redacted where it relates to women, but not where it relates to men, as far as he was concerned, unless it was impossible not to redact, say, images of men at the same time as women.
And so he's denied, protecting Donald Trump in any way. I should say that the president himself is speaking and is signing executive orders. If he's questioned on this, if he takes questions, we'll of course cross live to that at the moment. But so far he's been talking about the economy and not this potentially huge story that is breaking online. As you say, President Trump mentioned hundreds of times in this tranche of 3 million files relating to Jeffrey Epstein. Just take us through a bit of the sort of potential embarrassment and perhaps more that this could cause Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, as mentioned, some rather nasty allegations are surfacing in these files from what we are able to see already. We don't know the truth of them yet, but perhaps, this will end up being tested. Perhaps people will come forward and speak about it. it's certainly embarrassing for Donald Trump. He has a get out that some of these friends of Epstein don't have, which is that he broke off his friendship with Epstein for whatever reason before Epstein was actually prosecuted for the first time for sex trafficking. So he's more in the clear, so to speak, than people like Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who continue to be friends. I believe, by the way, that there's a little note from Ghislaine Maxwell to her sweet pea,
Mm.
believed to be Andrew, about the death of the Queen Mother.
Yeah.
But that's incidental. We also see for the first time an actual mugshot of Ghislaine Maxwell, which is interesting as well.
And it's
But
interesting
Donald
that
Trump, he's, yeah, sorry, go
I
on.
was just going to say, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, in that press conference he's just given, was asked if the public would learn the identities of the men who abused the girls from the documents. And he said that if we had information about men who abused women, we would prosecute them. So there's a clear sense there of the jeopardy in in this release today.
Well, the one thing that everybody is really concerned about now is an allegation brought by Ghislaine Maxwell as a result of earlier document dumps, where it turns out that there were 25 named men, or actually 25 so-called accomplices, sorry, believed to be co-conspirators with Jeffrey Epstein, whose names were redacted in the earlier tranche of documents. And she wants to know who they are, because she said that if she had known about this, she would have brought them to give evidence at her trial. And, you know, she's trying to get the verdict against her overturned. And so she wants to know who are these so-called 25 accomplices whose names have been redacted. So
Mm.
there's a lot of anticipation about whether or not we're going to find out more about these 25 men or not. And
Right.
these are people who came to a secret settlement earlier involving Jeffrey Epstein. Why was there a secret settlement? What did that involve? These are all very important questions.
Indeed. Well, we're going to let you just, if you wouldn't mind, just holding on the line while we just go to a different interview, but you'll have a chance to sort of pore over some of these documents, and we'll come back to you as soon as we have any news coming from President Trump, who is still speaking about issues other than these Epstein files. And just to recap for anyone just joining now, President Trump is mentioned hundreds of times in these new files, according to the Department of Justice website search function. It's not yet clear what those mentions relate to. He's consistently denied wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. We'll bring you all the latest on this as the Department of Justice, the US Department of Justice, releases 3 million files related to the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. First, let's go for an update to Sarah Baxter, journalist at the Marie Colvin Centre for International Reporting. She's on the line now. She's been getting across what's in those documents. Sarah, what have you managed to establish?
Okay, so we're only getting a quick taste of what might be in them, but there seems to have be some rather disturbing allegations about parties at Mar-a-Lago for so-called calendar girls, and some of which is too filthy to air on radio. And there's also the allegation by a woman that she was raped at 13 by Trump. But I should absolutely stress that this is uncorroborated. These are allegations. They're untested in court. They're unproven. And we do know that a lot of lurid claims were made. The FBI collected these claims over the years about what was going on with Epstein, and all the documents, or at least the vast majority of them, are now being published. So,
But this is
you
a
know,
woman who claims that at the age of 13, Donald Trump raped her. He's always denied any wrongdoing. But that is an incendiary claim, isn't it?
well, it is absolutely incendiary. And if there's any truth to it at all, we're going to have to see if there are, if the woman herself is willing to come forward and whether she's a credible witness. Unfortunately, we're not in that era where you can just say something like that about the President of the United States and be instinctively believed. But it's an
Mm.
incredibly dangerous allegation.
And just tell us about the status of these allegations, because that is one of many allegations within these documents. But how is it all displayed online for those who haven't got online to see it?
Yeah, well, at the moment, all the papers have been released, and now journalists are sifting through them, and no doubt others as well. So, the material is freely available, but what's so difficult is that obviously conspiracy theorists are going to take unproven allegations as fact.
Mm.
And yet we do know that a lot of proven allegations are extremely disturbing.
Yeah.
And that Jeffrey Epstein was a paedophile, that he was a sex trafficker. And Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting in jail right now for her role in procuring women to be abused by Epstein, underage women. We know that Donald Trump knew that Jeffrey Epstein liked women on the younger side, and they were friends.
Mm.
So this is the background context to this, but it doesn't mean by any stretch of the imagination that everything that is turning up in these files is true.
And of course, it's difficult, isn't it? As you say, that you have this allegation about a woman talking about when she was 13 years old. And there's no sense of what happened to that allegation, how it was assessed, is there?
There really isn't. And now, of course, a lot of men who were in Epstein's circle, started to say they were just there for their sort of, philosophical salons and so forth. And, and the more one peers into the files and sees the photographs of them standing next to scantily clad young women, etc., the more that kind of stuff starts to fall apart under scrutiny.
And
But this
talking,
particular allegation is so serious that, one really I mean, the mind boggles as to whether it's true or not.
well, and you would have thought that such an allegation, or at least some general questions, might be put to Donald Trump in that press conference he's just given, but there was no question forthcoming. What do you make of that?
Well, I find this jaw-dropping. I do know that the press corps has, treats the president with a lot more respect than the British press treats its prime ministers. But I was astonished that not one person asked even the most general question about what Donald Trump made
Mm.
about this Epstein release, even if they didn't at that time know about this specific allegation of rape. Just seems like an extraordinary dereliction of duty. But
Yeah.
I wasn't there, and I don't know exactly what was going on at that press conference. I only know what Donald Trump said, and he was not put on the spot.
And, sometimes obviously presidents, prime ministers, they pick journalists they think might be friendlier to them. And that could have happened in this instance. But even so, you would have thought that someone might have shouted a question, at least attempted to get something in at the end.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm baffled. I certainly would have been, if
Champing at the
standing at the
bit.
back, would have
Yes.
yelled something.
Yeah. Just before you go,
Yeah.
you mentioned some claims that are too disgusting to repeat on air, and they really are. But a lot of these allegations centre around Mar-a-Lago, don't they? Trump's club.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of connections to Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. We know, for instance, that he apparently poached Virginia Giuffre, who was working at the time at Mar-a-Lago, to, come and work for him, Epstein. And, she ended up, giving those sexual massages, etc., and was a key part of the evidence against Epstein. So, Epstein and Donald Trump were really good pals back in the day. They seemed to, Epstein was treated as a sort of most favored
Oh,
guest at Mar-a-Lago. And we know there's a lot of photographic evidence of Trump hanging out with Epstein. So it doesn't mean, of course, that he was party to any wrongdoing with underage women. But we do know they hung out together and seemed to be extraordinarily good friends, at least for a certain period of their lives.
Sarah Baxter, thank you very much for taking us through that. Pretty jaw-dropping claims, as you say. Donald Trump has always denied any wrongdoing. Important to state that these are allegations and we don't know the weight given to these allegations.